There are heaps of different HTML tags that are currently recognized by browsers such as Google Chrome and Firefox. What I've done is I've made a file and I've included all the most common HTML tags that you might see. And in this video, I'm just going to go through them one by one and explain what they are and what they look like. The first one that I've written is the HTML tag. This tells Google Chrome that the entire document that it's reading is a HTML file. It doesn't have any special styling associated to it. The next tag is the head tag. Inside of this tag, we would typically put anything that the website depends on. So for example, if we wanted to load up some code somebody wrote, maybe the code styles the website for us, or maybe it makes something move in a particular way, or maybe we want to install a font, or change the title, or change the icon in the corner of the screen. Anything like that would be stored inside of the head. And it's important to remember that whatever is put inside the head will be loaded and executed before anything else inside of the file. The next tag is the style tag. This tag typically isn't on a web page, but it's usually separated into a separate file. But just for an example, here is a style tag, and inside of a style tag, we would put any styling that we would want to apply to our website. So for example, here I've made the tag name made up have the style font size 100. Now I'll talk to you a little bit more about what made up means in a second. The next tag is body. Within this tag, we would put everything we expect the user to see on our page, so it's basically containing the body of the web page. And now inside the body, you'll see I have all these other tags listed. You'll also notice that I've indented. So just like normal programming inside of an if condition or a for loop, you indent. Every time you write code inside of a tag, you indent it by one tab or four spaces. So the first tag you've seen before, H1, hello, that just meant big and bold. H4 just meant bold. Another one is called div. Div stands for division, and basically what it does is it takes a whole chunk of the page. So in a second, I'll show you, it'll take a whole horizontal chunk of the page. It won't be next to anything. After that, we have span. Span has no associated styling to it, no font sizes, no colors. It's not going to take a whole chunk of the page. It's just going to be there next to whatever it's next to. Next is image. This is how we put images on a website. We just write img for image. SRC stands for source, equals, and then we just write the location of the image file. So in this case, I've just gone and got the logo of my website. Next one is A for anchor. This is the tag that's responsible for clicking on things, hyperlinks. So if you ever click on something and it sends you to a different web page, it's likely that you clicked on an anchor. And the way that this works is that you write href, HTTP referral, and then you write the website name next to it. So this is just going to send the website that you're on to the website that's written inside of these quotation marks. Inside the tag, you write whatever text you want to be clickable. So I've just written click here. The next tag that I've written is an input tag, and this tag is responsible for things like text boxes, password boxes, check boxes, radio buttons, and so on. There are heaps of these to choose from, and if you want to see all of them, just Google HTML input types and go to the W3 Schools website. It gives you a list of every single different type of input. As you scroll down, you'll see all the different types. So these are normal text boxes. Next one is a text and a password. The password box is the one that prevents you from seeing what you enter. There is a submit button. Down here somewhere, there's the radio buttons, the check boxes, and there's a whole bunch more. Now, what's important is that we need to tell the browser exactly what type of input we want it to render on the screen for us. And we do that using something called a HTML attribute. And we did use these already before. For example, href for the link. This is a HTML attribute, and SRC for the image. That's also a HTML attribute. Basically, what an attribute is, it's like a property of a particular tag that we can assign so that when the browser renders it, it knows to do something extra. So in the case of the anchor, it was okay, draw the anchor, but also make it linked to the website danbarter.com. In the case of the input, it's saying, all right, browser, make an input, and I want its type to be text, and I want its placeholder to be, this is a placeholder. Now the placeholder is a little gray text that you see within a text box before you type on it. There are heaps and heaps of attributes for all the different HTML elements, and they each do something different. If you want to learn more about HTML attributes, the best thing to do is just Google it. For example, on the W3 Schools website, it has a list of all the different HTML elements, and when you select one, it'll show you all of the attributes associated to that element. So in this case, I've selected the input tag and it's just listed out all of the different attributes and it explains exactly what it does. Okay, let's get back to looking through our HTML tags. The next one we have is our text area. This is where we have things like comment boxes. They just store more than just one line of text. You can just put heaps of text inside of there. We've got a select, which is a drop down menu, and these are all of the options. Looks like I forgot to finish this. Now it's fixed. And then we've got a unordered list. So this is just going to be dot points. There's the first dot point, there's a second dot point. And the last thing I wanted to say is that these are all predetermined and predefined HTML tags that all browsers are programmed to understand. But if we wanted to, we could just make up our own tag. So I've made up one called made up here. And that's why I wrote this styling at the top. So we expect that anything written inside of the made up tag should have this styling where the font size is 100. So now that that's all explained, let's have a look at what the website shows. So you can see that this div here is a little bit different to everything else. You can see the span and the image and all of the anchors and inputs and text blocks, they're all in line with each other. But the H1s and the div and the made up, they're all separate. Now, that's because by default, browsers treat divs and H1s differently to the way that they treat spans and images and so on. So the property of a div is that its display is block, which basically means it takes one horizontal block of the page. And the same is true for heading tags. Now for spans, let's have a look at the span. If we move the mouse over the span, you can see that it's only highlighting the word span, which is within the tags. Whereas when we put our mouse over the div, it highlights the whole horizontal chunk of the page. That's because the div is display block and a span isn't display anything, but by default it'll be display inline. And that just means it's shown in line with whatever is next to it. That's the same for image. And you can see images and spans are in line with each other, they're next to each other. It's the same for anchors, in line, inputs, text areas, selects. They're all in line with each other, and that's because they're missing this default display block hanging around. If we have a look at UL, this has the display block. So as we put our mouse over it, you'll see it extends to the end of the page, to the whole horizontal chunk of the page. And then finally made up. Now made up doesn't have a display block, it's just really big, so it gave the illusion of being display block. And that's it, that's basically all the HTML tags that you really need to know.